Okay, like I said in my earlier video, I was going to bring you guys about their task, right? And this is it here. Big Brother made it very clear. Like there's a huge demarcation between the boys and the girls, whereby that is how the housemates are going to roll from now on. Meaning that the task, their tax, that is their wager tax, is going to determine its success from opponents. Like this is what I mean, is girls versus boys, right? There's no name yet for each team, but we just know that it's boys versus girls. Sounds like real life thingy, right? So meanwhile, like I listed there, like I said in my last video, the topic of their debate, because right now they have already been given a wager. As soon as they enter, 160 million is not smiling. Biggie has already started the job with them already. To be continued, because I believe that they are usually on lockdown 2 weeks too. So they have rested enough. It's time to start the work of entertaining us, the viewers. That is why we're paying subscriptions, right? Okay, so it is here. They were given a wager where there's going to be introduction of themselves. They were even given a microphone that looks like Ebuka's microphone. Yeah, meanwhile, Ebuka does not disappoint. But that's by the way, he looked good on the stage, as I'm trying to say to you guys. So they were now asked to introduce themselves. Some of the introduction we heard, some we didn't hear, and then it was just there like that. But as we proceed, more and more revelations will come out. That is what they even promised us themselves. Someone like the lawyer, what's that her name? Is it I'm sorry, Neche. She even told us that she has a family secret that she's going to reveal later. So we're like, our fingers are crossed. So afterwards, Biggie asked someone to come into the diary room, and then Temi went there, got the wager briefing. But see, those housemates, they nearly fell my hand. I don't understand. How can they tell me that among 23 of them, they were battling to understand Temi's accent, London accent, the girl from London? I was like, this girl I think she has even stayed a little bit in Nigeria. So she has relaxed her accent, sort of, but they were claiming that they didn't understand. Um, whatever. But last, they started dealing with the briefing themselves, and it had to do with um coming together as a team to work. Otherwise, there's even going to be consequences. There's going to be punishment if such. And I hope Biggie keeps to his promise of consequences, because the last season I think they got away with a lot of bullshit. So this should not repeat itself. Rule is a rule. It's a game house, and there are rules and regulations that has to be adhered with. So, excuse me. Now, coming to the tax itself, the guys had jump into it. Men will always be men. Now, that's the nature we're talking about. When that wager came into play, I was like, oh God, I wish I could just be a fly in that house and talk to, like, guys, I just did a sociology course on nature versus nurture. So trust me, I have content, I have materials on that. So when they were talking, I was so interested. I was feeling sleepy, but I had to stay awake, right? So the boys had their first session of meeting on the round table. Then their boxes had even come. The ladies were the ones that were trying to get their boxes so that they could change, which is understandable, because most of them, their clothes were they were energy sucking clothes with corsets and all of that. Yeah, they really wanted to. So the ladies were more interested in their bags than the guys. The guys had already sat down briefly and deliberated on their task, right? So it was much, much, much later. If I almost wanted to go to bed, I was tired. That was like past one. And before finally these ladies, it was even Mercedes. Thanks to Mercedes was the mobilizer. Like, that girl's patience. If this is real, then that girl, I need to give it to her. She literally was begging these ladies. Like, she was not offending anybody. In fact, the way she was talking to them, they had no choice than to comply. Women and our wahala, they were trying to take off makeup, like that. But then they now got deliberating. So while they were even still deliberating, the guys still kind of created a small, not all of them this time around, just a small clique, and they were talking about the task itself. Well, I'll come back to the guys, but let me talk about the ladies first, right? Now, the ladies is they are taking not nurture. Right, like I told you guys, the topic of the debate is nature versus nurture. What makes you who you are? Right? Is it nature or is it nurture? Right? And like I said, I did a course in sociology that says that nature gives every individual its identity, right? But nurture gives every individual the ego and the super ego, meaning your socialization is from nurture. Yeah. So nurturing has to do with a lot. Nature has to also do with a lot, right? But nurture is more sociological over nature that is psychological. So what am I trying to say here? Nanu did there, but let me just add my own 2 cents. Is the fact that nature is science, and that was the part I appreciated Chimsom for. But talking about the ladies, they were using vegetation, like they were using plantation, because they are going to ask for props, right? So they were trying to gather what kind of props they will use for illustration, because obviously you need illustrational material. So in the bid of their discussion, they will be able to gather what kind of props they will use. So they were talking about seeking for a picture of a forest and a garden, obviously, to differentiate the aspect of nature. Sorry, to appreciate, yeah, to appreciate, to is it explain the aspect of nurturing, right? Whereby Neche was the one that was specifically saying when you go to a forest, you see the plants are just growing scattered. Yeah, but when you go to a garden, you will see plants are well structured, so beautifully, so healthy, and all of that. So that was the angle they were trying to tackle the topic nurture from, which I wish they could go deeper. I wish these guys could go deeper and deeper. Nurture is larger than they think. And the fact that they are just sticking to certain ideology without bringing, that's what do I mean by certain ideology. I don't know why they are so bent on plants, which I'm not saying that man does not have any communication with his environment. In fact, if anything, plants and man have this symbiotic relationship, yes. But the topic still drives back to individuality. So linking it to individuality, right? For me, I don't think that they should waste so much time in structuring it. Instead, they should put in more effort in putting it in the individual aspect of life. That was for the ladies, they were doing their thingy. So let's go back to the guys. I told you they still also met the second time in the kitchen, though not fully equipped, but then just still talking about the topic nature. Honestly speaking, Chimsom was the guy for me. I wish those guys will listen to him. I don't know, for some reason, Martins kept trying to slice it. You know, one thing with men, they always want to prove a point. Hi! See, the women, when they were deliberating, you could see that there was a lot of attention, yes, to whoever is talking. But you see, the guys, everybody wants to prove a point. Everybody wants to show himself. And I'm glad that for the first time, Biggie even demarcated. There's a segregation between the guys and the ladies. Do you understand? And you can see clearly who has always been causing problem in every tax. Yes, if you look at the history of Big Brother House, the guys have been causing more problem than the ladies. Do you understand? The ladies are more receptive. They're just probably nature, yeah, over the men. Now you can see them themselves there. Martins kept. I wish Martins will allow Chimsom head this task, because Chimsom is getting it for what it is. When he said talking about nature, you talk about science, I was like, "Mwah, I give it to you, guy." Yeah, but Martins kept trying to bring in another, which Martins was even the first person that coded that sociology was nurture. But mind you, they're not talking about nurture, they're talking about nature. You understand? Because I don't know why Martins kept dragging Chimsom back to nurture. And Chimsom is telling him, we're not speaking about nurture, we're speaking about nature, right? But Martins kept insisting that they need to understand nurture in order to counter their own points to make it nature. And I'm like, why are you doing this? And honestly, Chimsom has this ability to be patient. Like, if it was me, I'd have just kept quiet. Like, Martins kept dragging. Yes, was he making a point? Sort of, but Chimsom was the one that was going towards that direction. You know, it got to a point that they even confused the Chimsom, because Chimsom started bringing in some illustrations that I didn't even want him to bring again. And who even contributed in that contribution? Funny enough, it wasn't even Martins, it was Cassi. Cassi was now coming, talking about what they're talking about. Let's just see how it goes. Let's just see how it goes. But the fact that they have kind of understood the direction where they were going was it for me. Where even when they asked Aikou, because Aikou is another powerhouse from the look of things, like he's another brain box. I mean, from the look of things, he also categorically said science, and that is it. Nature is science, nurture is sociology, social science, right? And the both of them come into play to create a dynamics around every individual. Yeah, I heard the guys talking about their natural biological hormones that has to do with their testosterone. They're talking about survival instincts. They're talking about, Martins also indicated about the archaeology facts of women doing the nurturing in the man's life. And they were going back and forth quite okay. But you know, a debate, you have to still stick to the prompt that is meant for you to either be for or against, and link it to the individualism that the big brother tax wager has indicated. I hope I'm not talking too much English. I'm not in the house, so but I'm just really analyzing. But you know, when you're analyzing, you know, it will be doing as if psychologically you're inside the house. So thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you, and see you again soon. Yeah, bye.